Make sure it's up to date. There he is. It's your boy. It's your boy playing ominous music for no fucking reason. Exactly. These are some slow sounds. Super slow sounds. Far slower than I was intending. Talking whales. Let's play with you. It's time to vibe. Hello, Mick. I did not do a going live message anywhere. I forgot to do that. I'm a mess. I'm just going to play some atmospheric music for a little bit, then we'll start talking about sounds. Uwu intensifies arty. Scrambled. Handsome scrambled egg. Kind of love it. We'll do some soft piano. I'm feeling soft. That's not a comment I expected to speak. You know what I mean? So this is purely a soft piano. Let's open with a bit of air steam. Flaccid piano, God no. Floppy piano. No, it's not flappy. Because rip flappy. Oh god, that's a terrible Zelda ripoff. Echo. I say we're going to be learning some music theory in a few minutes' time. Oh fuck. That's not water, Artie. That's not water. Yes, defo Meg. Thank you. Cool. Let's talk music. Let's talk sounds. Let's talk notes.
Impressive!
Thank you. So, we're going to be... Hopefully that's far too loud. It's also far too dramatic. We'll stick with it though. Sam Thing Strange is now hosting me. Thank you, Sam. So let's talk sounds. So what are sounds? Sounds are air vibrations. Sounds are waves. Sounds are things that go wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. And for the technical term. And essentially, the way it works is I have got various websites that I opened up. I can't remember what any of them are. Sounds hurt me. Sounds hurt you. Sounds can. Depending on what they vibrate on. But every frequency, every note on the piano. Actually, I'm going to turn off the music for now. Every note on the piano has its own. Also, I'm not going to volume for myself on headphones. Yeah, tinnitus is fucking awful. Be louder. Okay. But yeah, every note on a piano has a certain frequency. Up the piano bit. Okay, I think that's better. Cool. So every sound has its own frequency. The amount of times, if it's a string, either whether it's plucked or hit, the amount of times that goes up, down, back. Hey, let's go. Don't worry about it, Duck. Welcome in. We're talking about sounds. But yeah, every note has a frequency. The frequency is the amount of times it goes up and down. It's measured in hertz, so that's the amount of times it happens per second. So, I've got this chart here. So any note that's on the piano, including this range and beyond, has a frequency, and I'll say it here. It says roughly under these. Now, apart from A. Hey, Sam. So, the way this is something I can talk about in a different session. The way pretty much all modern Western music tunes is tunes to the note A4, being at 440 hertz. So 440 of wave cycles per second, so, which sounds a bit like this. Jesus Christ, that's loud. Okay, let's set the volume for this at 16 because I can't hit 15. So that there's 440 in and out. Now the way that a loudspeaker would basically replicate that would be the way a loudspeaker would represent that would be to basically have like the membrane on the speaker itself doing that motion 440 times a second. Now, what's really quite interesting is if you go lower than say about 40 hertz, so 40 in and out per second, you end up not actually hearing like the pitch. You end up hearing each individual one because if I clap my hand about 1 I've got my hand about. That's about 1 beat per second. That's like a 1 hertz clap. If I did that 40 times, if I did that 100 times, if I could clap my hand 440 times a second, you wouldn't hear any individual claps. You would just hear basically a really weird sounding sound that sounds roughly this pitch. That's very loud. That's the wrong tab. You'd hear a sound that sounds like that pitch, but slightly strange because you're also hearing like kind of, you know, vibrations in the room. You're hearing the sound of my hand on my slapping on my skin. If you look up stuff like the octave bass. The octave bass is it's like one of these kind of, it's almost a fucking meme instrument at this stage. It's like a double bass, but like a fucking quadruple. Actually, octave bass would be octuple bass.
My name is.
And it actually goes so low. Sam's clapping fast. It's not time yet. yeah, it's fucking size of it. So the actual lowest notes in this, you can actually see the string manually going in and out, and you don't really hear it as a pitch.
Colin. I'm a curator at MIM.
Which is really fucking cool.
Is the octave bass.
So this is just hitting lowest notes so low that you're actually not really hearing them.
The octave bass was invented
as
in 1850
yeah,
by the famous French violin maker Jean-Baptiste Villon.
It's not got space for
the intent
properly.
Was to create an instrument, so it has to be built specially. The player stands on a platform, and then pulls on levers, which are connected to a mechanism that pulls down the string on a fret to change the pitch of the string.
Yes, we can, Meg.
Needless to say, nothing happens quickly on this instrument.
So you can already see the string vibrations. I mean, also the camera's not quite picking up because this footage will be at the best at 60 hertz.
Here we have the octave bass bow.
Yeah.
This is specially made for the octave bass. It's quite a bit larger and shorter than a normal bass bow.
Go lower.
It's made in the French style, which you would normally hold like so, but in this case, it's so big.
It's incredible.
All I can do is hold on. The bow is made with.
This is why you need like proper arm muscles, because he's just
an ebony frog, and leather grips, and lots of horsehair.
I'm not totally convinced that this actually is a big instrument. I think he's just tiny.
It is tuned 2 octaves below a cello. The lowest C note on it is at 16 hertz.
16 hertz, so 16 waves per second, which is incredibly slow. Ebony Frog is the worst name I've ever heard. Jesus Christ.
Which means it is actually below the frequency that humans can actually hear.
So this is kind of the higher range of the instrument. But yeah, 16 hertz. Who would attempt to hold the bow proper way? Someone with fucking muscles. That's not even the lowest string yet. Here we go. Now you should be able to hear it's kind of got like a kind of grainy texture. It's almost like you're hearing little spikes. Those are actually just the waves. You're actually hearing the waves going in and out because it's such a low frequency that you're not hearing it as a pitch. You're just hearing the manual frequency. Every little you're hearing is actually just how low it is. Hey, so actually we are talking about sounds and harmonies. We are currently just into the start right now of what sounds actually are and of low frequencies. So this is using an example of the octave bass, which can produce incredibly low frequencies, so low that you don't actually hear them as notes, you just hear them more as vibrations, which is what sounds essentially are. It kills specs. There you go, there's that C. So yeah, that's what 16 hertz is. Now, with that one, you can clearly hear the which is just the frequency of it. All that's happening with any other stringed instrument or any other instrument generally is that it's just going that fast that you can't hear the individual ones and it becomes pitch. Like I could put this down to 16 hertz. You might not hear this at all. Or if you do, you might. Okay. Headphone users might be able to, headphone users probably be able to feel that. If you're wearing headphones, you might just be able to feel that a bit. I'm going to stop that in case that's hurting anyone. I'm going to do it once. Barely, okay. If you've got headphones on, you can hold them onto it. I mean, if you're going through speakers, especially laptop speakers, you're not going to be able to hear anything. Okay, I'm doing it louder. Okay, so I'm going to put this up slightly, and you're going to slowly hear it become audible as an actual pitch. So this is constantly playing. As an experiment, keep track of the number. See if you can spot the one where it becomes a pitch to you as opposed to just either like your headphones vibrating or a speaker vibrating. It's a lot clearer to you at 20, yeah. Actually, I mean that could more come down to the physical limitations of your headphones or the speakers. Yeah, a lot's going to come down to physical limitations of the speakers because most aren't made for 20 frequency sounds. And actually, most speaker membranes, including headphones, are designed so that they do not amplify sounds of this frequency because Jesus Christ. Clicks. Okay. Also, this is quite handy. It's telling you what note it is. We're below A0. Okay, so we're now A0. This is an A. We'll keep going up. I think 40 is where things start to become definitely pitchy for most people. Okay. So that's 40 hertz. Let's go back down to that A0 at 29. Sorry, 28. You're not having alright, I'm not having one, but this is what my head feels like when I'm having a hardcore anxiety. That's really fucking interesting. So I mean, that we found the frequency of your anxiety attack. That's fucking disturbing, but cool. So I've stopped it now. So as you can see here, I don't know if you can see how clearly this is, but I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit. Aha, if we zoom in, it removes the numbers. That was useless. Cool. So it's got the numbers underneath, and one thing you'll probably notice: switching your chest. Fuck, that's cool. See, this is one reason why I do this, because I wanted to kind of experiment about some of this stuff. So you'll notice that every number in here is approximate, apart from A's. And if you look at the ratios between them, so A4 at 440 hertz is what everyone tunes to. If you've played an orchestra's duck, you're going to get, you know that pitch well. But actually A0 is at 27.5 technically. So you'll notice that every other A is half of, well, so A4 is twice the, yeah. You should unclench all your muscles. See, I should just do ultimate relaxation streams that's just like pulsing like 20 hertz sounds for like 4 hours or some shit. But you'll notice that every A is either double or half of the is double the one before or half of the one after. So A4 at 440 hertz is half of A5 at 880 hertz, which is half of A6 at 1760, half of A7 at 3520, half of A8 at 7040. And this is because essentially the way it works is that as you double the frequency, you then go up an octave. And this works with every note. I mean, all these other notes are more approximated, so like a G, a G4 isn't a 392, it's actually 391.9995, or it's because of the way the ratios work between the other notes. That's something we're going to come to in a little bit. But as you go up an octave, all you're doing is doubling the frequency. So it is more of a kind of logarithmic, exponential growth. I think that's the term, where every octave you're going up double and double and double, and therefore the intervals between each of the notes individually becomes exponentially larger. And actually, this website here, Online Tone Generator, has got a handy tool here where I can multiply it by 2 and go up the octaves. And the mouse goes, so I can't put it back down. Cool. So to go up and down the octaves, all you're doing is doubling the speed. So technically speaking, if I'm clapping my hands at 1 per second, if we're considering this a wave, when I double the speed, technically speaking, I can consider it to be going up an octave, which is a weird way of putting it, and no one's ever going to put it that way, but octaves are just double the frequency, or half the frequency if you're going down. And this applies the same to, let's pick C. So C at roughly 33 goes up to, well, just under 33 goes to just over 65, goes to about 131. It's just going up double every time. Oops. And beyond this, you end up reaching, it sounds higher to you. What are you seeing? That could just be the sound of my clapping, because obviously if you change the shape of your hands, if you change the shape of your hands, you can based on the kind of area that you've got to play with. Basically, larger areas resonate lower than higher areas, but that's a separate thing, separate conversation. We're going to talk about percussion someday. But yeah, music is just maths, and actually harmonies. So if I played a chord to you, all these sounds are fairly consonant. And by consonant, I mean they sound nice together. And what makes consonances sound nice together, what makes notes sound nice together and sound consonant, for the term, is the ratios in which they work in with each other. So octaves work really nicely within each other because they are literally double or half, and therefore they will always meet up. And if I play an A4 at the same time as an A5, I'm going to turn the volume down on that because that's a bit loud. Actually, I'm going to turn the volume down on my end because that's also really loud for me. These get brilliant chaps for percussion, yes. Well, things it's less going to be on technique. It's more just, I say, I'm planning on these sessions being a mix of here's some theory on sound, here's some music theory, and also here is some interesting stories, depending on how things go. That's a spider up there, but that's cool. So, because 880 and 440 divide into each other in a really nice ratio, so basically 880 is double 440, because it's a really nice ratio between them, they sound nice, they sound consonant. Whereas, and if I took E5, which is a fifth, we'll come to this later, if I took E5, which is a fifth up from it, that also sounds nice, because the ratio that comes from this, which is roughly 660, give or take, roughly 660 also works nicely because that's basically 3 over 2. So 3 over 2, so that 3 over 2 ratio, whereas, so 660 roughly is 1.5 times 440. And basically the neater the numbers can divide into each other, the more consonant they sound, the less jarring they sound. It does. It requires the technique of hitting the triangle. I don't want to make fun of percussionists. Percussionists are awesome. So basically, the neater the fraction, the neater they divide it, the two frequencies divide into each other, the more harmonic the more consonant they sound. So if you look, so if you want to figure out what notes will sound nice together, which is where a lot of scales and a lot of original music was written. But music was originally written as more to be harmonic. You would base it off of how the notes, base it off of consonances and then occasional dissonances. Actually, a lot of early music really. There's a lot of, you know, if you go back, it tends to be earlier you go back in music, the less they liked dissonances, at least sustained dissonances that didn't then become consonances. So, if we're taking a 440 again, and instead go down one to D sharp 5 or E flat 5, which is this note. So this is about 622-ish. We have what's called a tritone. We're going to come back to why it's called a tritone in a little bit. But this here, for a lot of people, is a big dissonance. And actually, it's such a big dissonance that a lot of music comes. A lot of people immediately want to resolve it by moving it to something that's consonant. On its own, feels unfinished, and on its own, this is more of a dissonant sound. So I mean, so certain intervals, like this one with the tritone or straight up semitone, sound. There are certain ones that sound more dissonant than others, and it's purely because the ratio between the two notes, as far as frequencies go, isn't neat. So what's I look up so what's the tritone ratio? So the tritone frequency ratio is, where is it? 64/45, I think it is. I think it's 64/45. Semitones are worse than tritones. It's arguable. I mean, historically tritones are worse, but that's because you ended up with the whole F to B tritone if you're only writing in if you're writing in, say, C major or C Ionian. What's the mode? Ionian, yeah. My mode's escaping for a second. But actually, what's quite interesting here is, what if you took the ratio to its extremes? So you're saying semitones are worse because they're really close together, and it's because they're really close together, and therefore the ratio between the two frequencies is wrong. What if we took the notes and made them even closer together? So let's go for A440 and A440. So I'm going to play them both at the same volume. So that's just two notes, same volume. Any guesses what would happen if I'd moved one of them to 441? So I'm going to play this. I'm going to change this one to A4. I'm going to change this to 441 on its own. If you tell me you can hear the difference, I will call you a lie. It gets louder and quieter. Krillin dies again. Krillin could die again from this. I can't predict it. It does get louder and quieter. What you end up hearing is you hear the difference. Some are worse than this. One you just play makes me want to run to your keyboard to resolve it. See, this is the fun thing, because I remember I wrote a piece years ago that Ben played that had a constant kind of pattern of. All the way through it. Just had this tritone pattern. And Ben, with at the time far worse OCD than he does now, had to leave the room for a lot of rehearsals for that because it never resolved. There you go, there's the resolution. Completely resolved the entire phrase for you. You're welcome. So, Artie, you're right. It does get louder and quieter, but you'll notice the pattern. So here's 440 and 441 at the same time. Sound wave visualizer. Not you. Visual oscilloscope. Bingo. No, do not use my microphone. Okay. AM Vital Fruits. Okay. I can't find. I forgot to install that software. That what you're actually hearing is it getting louder and quieter at 1 hertz. You're hearing the difference. You're hearing it go louder and quieter at 1 hertz. That's 1 per second, because that's the difference between the two. So if I increase this to 442, you're hearing it get louder and quieter at 2 hertz. What you're hearing the original pitch roughly, but you're hearing it go louder and quieter at the difference. And the question is, what happens if I take this beyond, say, 20 hertz? So that's 6 per second, 10 per second. You might be able to hear quite a low note. What you're basically hearing a ghost note. The bass may well drop. So right now, as well as hearing 500 hertz note and the 440 hertz note, there's also a kind of ghosty effect of basically 60 hertz, because that's the difference. Might be able to hear it rising up from underneath. Very quietly in the background, there should be a kind of ghost effect of a kind of lower note rising. And if we stop about, where is it, 660-ish? Ouch. That's just reached the halfway point, and there we've reached another massive constant. So, sounds and harmonies are really interesting, and it all comes down to maths. Armin's not bothered by it. Excellent. Wait till later. So it all comes down to maths, and then when they start, but then this isn't something that early musicians were necessarily. This isn't something that early musicians weren't necessarily playing about with. They weren't going, oh, well, let's stick these notes together because the waves correlate nicely. A lot of it comes down to what feels right, and this is why it feels worse to most people then. Which is why when you write music, a lot of it comes down to building tension and resolving tension. So it feels nice. And actually, well, you can just... So what I did before with the pattern that I kind of played to ease Duck's worries was basically just resolving, was building up tension by playing a dissonance, resolving it to a consonance by moving one of the notes, then over and over again. So dissonance, consonance, dissonance, consonance. And at the end there's a cheeky little cadence. So, she hates the E string on a violin. She'll hate it at some point. Well, we could talk about timbre at some point, but that's probably not going to happen in today's one. So, from here we had notes. And just want to clarify, just for anyone who doesn't know necessarily how the note system works. Where is it? So we have, open up some tabs just to refer to. Okay, job test. We have notes. Here is a scale. So we have the notes of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So we basically have A through G. Here it's starting on C. Doesn't particularly matter as to where we start on C. You can start on any note and finish on any other note. Entirely up to you. Just C major is basic, bitch. So some basic terminology here. So where's my picture piano keys? So why are the notes where they are in the lines? Okay, interesting thing here. How did they decide that that's going to sit? If I remember right, it comes down to comfortable singing ranges. So I think it'd be for sopranos, perhaps. I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Because some white guy said it should be there, most likely. Actually, probably more specifically because some white guy who worked with choirs, some white religious person, some white Catholic probably, decided it should be there. But it's a lot easier to read music when they're in the lines. It would be fucking awful to try and read music that's got 10 lines and you're trying to like figure out where things are, because it becomes harder to tell, is that the 15th line or is that the 14th line or is that the 13th line? Whereas when you've got 5 lines, Catholics, a lot of the early music was written for the church, and a lot of early music notation certainly was all church based. Actually, that could be an entire special one there. We'd be talking about neumes and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to read music when there's only a few lines, in this case 5 for modern standards, and it's a lot easier to read when the stuff that you're actually playing is in the lines. I mean, anyone who's had to play music where you're counting like 4 or 5 lines above or 4 or 5 lines below any given point can attest to how fucking annoying it is to try and especially sight read that. It's American intensifies, yes. This is the downside with this is that is that a lot of this came from predominantly sort of white European church background. Mostly Western music created by the churches, a lot of indigenous completely, but the theory that the theory that's there. The theory that's there comes from the Western music one, 100%. I mean, there are, although funnily enough, interesting fact here, interesting way of putting it. Even though it can be, actually I'm wearing a t-shirt that says "You only Jesus," the irony is not lost on me. But even though we can look at it and go, well, Western music starts with this, and you're wondering maybe the theory behind harmony only applies to Western music. But interestingly enough, all cultures, not just Western cultures, have an innate sense of this harmony. Maybe not in the same way with the scales and the modes and the keys and the key signatures. Most of that is more predominantly Western, yeah. But certain things like harmony, so consonances, dissonances, compared to harmony, compared to consonances and dissonances and harmony, is prevalent across all cultures, and a lot of that comes down to just the fact that this naturally sounds harsher than this. That is prevalent across all cultures. There's a really interesting video I'm going to put on here. Bobby McFerrin talking about the power of the pentatonic scale. If you've not seen this is incredible. And he says he's done this with groups in different countries all over the world, and everyone gets it. Every audience gets it, because the pentatonic scale, which is built on, pentatonic scale is just ingrained in all cultures, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that we all have an innate sense of what sounds good. So, sounds a lot better than, for instance. It's a fucking great one. This one blows my mind. Also, Bobby McFerrin is an incredible singer with so many different talents and abilities. It's genuinely not even fair.
Talking about expectations.
Yeah, this is mind blowing.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of music has more or less as well. You also have a lot of Eastern music that is 5 notes, that is a mix of various. I think there's also some that have 6 notes as well. Also, that's if we're only talking about equal temperament, which temperaments is a separate discussion for another day. It's great, eh? So yeah, every culture has an innate sense of harmony in it, which, even if it's not described in the same way, people are laughing because they're being mind fucked by this, because they're realizing that shit, he's right, and it's a fairly intrusive thing to think. It's a fairly intrusive thing when where you don't realize how much you have an expectation for things, and actually, as a Western audience, a lot of music comes down to expectations. I mean, if I played a chord to you, if I played this chord, there's a big part of you that instinctively, especially if I do that third chord, makes sense. And that third chord, a lot of you, that third chord, it kind of auto-fills for you. Auto-fills for at least most people think. And the reason it auto-fills is partly because, well, it's largely because that's ingrained in your culture. It's ingrained in what you listen to. You've heard that resolution. He's got Startle is now staring at the wall. Oh, good God. It's the ghost of the piano. But yeah. So, where was it? So next thing I was going to talk about would be scales. So, brief. The ghost note from before, exactly. The ghost note from when we were playing 2 notes that had a weird harmony. So, brief, little bit of terminology. So, tones and semitones. Unfortunately, this Wikipedia article here about modes has got a whole bunch of different modes, including, so here, this goes back to what you're saying, Zach. So here's the Hirajoshi scale, which actually is the one I was thinking of. It's the one that's 6 notes. Ironically enough, this one here doesn't actually talk in terms of tones and semitones. It talks about wholes and halves. So a tone or a whole tone is not actually, is rather annoyingly not the difference between one note and the note directly after it. So the C to the C sharp is actually 2 gaps. Let's go. So you see here there's C, C sharp, D. So a tone or a whole tone is actually basically missing a note. So C to a D is a whole tone, but a C to a C sharp, which is just the black note above it, is a semitone or a half tone, depending on which system you're going by. So tone is jump of 2, half tone or semitone jump of 1. And actually here, the E to an F is also a semitone because it's not a note in between. It's the same difference as. Easiest way to judge that is if you can play Jaws in it, it's a semitone. So C. This is playing these two notes here, the C and the C sharp. And if you move the whole thing up, and if you can play Jaws and it's a semitone, as I say. So here is E to F. Sorry. If you can play Jaws, it's a semitone. So you have tones and you've got semitones, and most scales in Western culture are based around there being 8 notes, and then after with the 8th one being it's based on there being 7 notes, with the 8th note being the octave of the one you started on. So if you start on C, you then play 7. There's 7 notes total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're back at C. So that's most Western ones. As I say, there are lots of other scales here that don't actually have more or less. Here's is there ones here with more or less? I'm not actually seeing ones with. Okay, actually here's. Actually, tell you how many notes we've got here. So here's not melodic minor. A harmonic scale. It's not going into that. Gamma scale. Beta scale. What the fuck are these? I've never heard of some of this stuff. So 21 tone equal temperament. Let's not go into that. There's a lot of scales with less than 7, certainly. A yo scale, which is. Most of these scales you might never have actually heard in practice. Most of Western music, most stuff that you hear about is based off of major and minor. But before there were major and minor scales. Actually, I'm going to briefly explain what a major scale and a minor scale is. Major scale would be, it's a bad image for it. So let's just look for it here. Major electron. Bebop. Can you just give me a major? Okay, Ionian. Ionian mode or major scale. We'll come back to. I'm about to go into what Ionian mode would be after this. So the pattern for being able to tell what it is whole tone, half tone, semitone, whole tone, half tone. I'm going to swap over to the tone semitone terminology because that's far more natural for me to work with. So tone, semitone, tone, semitone. So looking back at the keys, unfortunately this is a shit image. I'm going to try to find another one. Piano keys. Okay, here we go. Starting with C. So following the pattern tone, semitone, tone, semitone. I'm going to put it here in the chat just for reference. So looking at the notes, so you got C. So tone, semitone. Because there's not a note here. Tone, semitone. Tits, tone, iffy tone, semitone is the tits scale. I like it. So, let's see. So start with C. Tone, semitone, tone, semitone. Which you'll notice is all the white keys. This is why C major is a bit of a basic bitch scale, because you just play the white keys. Oh shit. Hello, Snooch. Welcome in. You've been snooched on. There we go. You've been playing art. Welcome in. From art, we're now talking about sound and music. We're talking about all this fun stuff. Welcome in Beans Spiel. Welcome in Tim Jack Master, and thank you for snowing all over me. Welcome in Blurkbait, and welcome in Snooch yourself. All about music notes. So yeah, this is more of a kind of this is the first one I'm doing of these, which is more kind of, how to describe it? How to describe it as my hotkeys aren't working. This is kind of music theory, and we're kind of delving into the basics, and any stuff I'm producing here is going to be put up online somewhere else if you want to catch up. But we're talking about harmony, talking about how scales are made, and well, scales right now. Paintings on an edgy elf miniature figure. Please, if you have images, please let me know because I want to see them. So yeah, so tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So basically, what I was talking about is how to tell and how to gauge what scale is. So a major scale follows a pattern of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. I'm going to post it again here. And just to rehash on that, a tone is where a semitone is one note to the note directly after it, and a whole tone or a tone is not just the note after it, but the one after. So it's jumps of one or two. A one jump is a semitone, a two jump is a tone. So tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Major scale. But that was on C. That's starting on C. What if we moved that on to D? So the next note. Soon he'll become Dr. Jubb. Hee hee. I'm not sure about this. Jubb is currently in his final year studying music. Yeah. Thank you, Artie. Hyping your boy. So if we start on D, we've got tone, but we're not going to the next wide note. So the next one's a tone. It takes us to the F. Sharp. Semitone. Tone, tone, tone up to here. Semitone. So tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Can I call him the Doctor? I would like that. The thing is, I tried to reserve the name Dr. Jubb. I genuinely tried to reserve the name Dr. Jubb on Twitch, and it was fucking taken. It annoys me because I wanted just to surprise people when I found out I got my PhD. When I find out I got my PhD by calling myself Dr. Jubb. Play music with just a jub, just a jib, just a tip. No. So, if you take any starting note, someone give me a starting note and we can work out using the pattern tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, what the major scale is going to be. So I'm taking it. So whatever the next note here is. I know you're trying to save me, but you know I'm too far gone to be saved. So whatever the next note's thrown at me is, we'll figure out to go. A7. We're going to take it down to just an A, because let's not go up to higher. You'll buy it off them as a grad present. That's sweet. Bad communication is such an awful thing at jobs. Starting a new environment's bad enough. Where's the bad environment? Oh shit! Sorry, I just seen it back there. Yeah, that sucks. Let's hire and break it from job. No, we're not gonna go. We're not gonna go back to our online tone generator and let's not do that. So, starting off at A. Start for an A, which we've got here. So we've got A. So we've got tone to B. Tone to C sharp, semitone, tone to F sharp, another tone over to G sharp, and then semitone across. How else will we contact the aliens? Mostly by going. Sorry. I'm contacting the aliens. Okay. I can make some fucking horrific sounds. So pigeons are aliens, yes. There we go. I figured you'd appreciate it. So yeah. So you can follow this pattern. You can even follow it from an F sharp, say.
What the fizzity-yuck was that? Let's fizzity-yuck and find out!
So, starting at F sharp here. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, tone over to the F. Well, semitone. So, again, following the pattern, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone gives you every major scale. And before there were scales, before there were major scale and minor scale, there were modes. And the modes you can think of as being basically like the simplistic way of thinking about modes is that you're playing all the white notes but starting on a different note each time. Oh good lord. Oh good lord, wow. How bad was it? How else will they contact the aliens? Mostly by going Sorry. Okay, I fucking nailed that scream. This is a pain stare into the camera. I'm quite pleased with how I managed that. Where's it stare? That's horror. That's fucking horrific. Yes! I've killed some. Sorry. Hey, also Snooch, thank you for the follow. See, the scream is what sold you. I bet you're fucking glad you took them out before the scream. So, where was I? Modes. So modes, you can think of them as starting on any note of the scale, starting on any white note, but you're just playing but you're playing all the white notes. So, so the C major scale we've already covered is all the white notes, but starting on C. And a minor scale is basically all the white notes, but starting on A. Now, in a lot of Western culture, there's a really special relationship between C major, because it is white notes, that's just a jib, and A minor. Now, the special relationship is that because both that major scale and that minor scale contain the same notes, they are what we call a relative major and a relative minor. So, C major is a relative major of A minor. Equally, A minor is the relative minor of C major. And every major key, if you go down 1, 2, 3 semitones, or a tone and a semitone, or a tone and a half, every major key, if you go down 3 semitones, you'll find its minor key. And every minor key, if you go up 3 semitones, you find its major key. So, if you're ever playing, if you know the notes to a major scale and you want to know the notes to a minor scale, if you know the notes to every major scale, you can figure out the notes to every minor scale by taking that major scale and going down 3. You learn to order the modes using an acronym involving aliens. Can you remember it right now? What is the acronym? But yeah, basically what I was going to say, while we're waiting for Duck to give us the alien acronym, there are far more modes than that. There are 7 modes, because, you can start on any note. You can start on C, which gives you the major scale, but what scale is this one? If you start on D, it's neither major nor minor. Or how about starting on E? Or F? Not a clue. Excellent. Camera's there. That's starting on G, starting on A, which is back to the one so starting on A is the minor one. Starting on B is an interesting one because it sounds weird. I believe that one is the Locrian mode, which is very, very rarely used because it sounds really bizarre. Whereas a lot of the other modes basically not quite major, not quite minor, were used in a lot of pieces. Particularly a lot of stuff. If you want to sound, I'm going to use this term here. I don't like using this term. I do not like using this term. But if you're wanting the piece to sound, the closest term I can think of it is more sort of ethnically diverse. then you maybe use a mode as opposed to just a major or minor key. For instance, John Petrucci's Glasgow Kiss, for instance, uses uses a Mixolydian one, so starting on G, because it doesn't quite. I think part of the reason he does that is to give it a bit more of a Celtic vibe. Give it a bit more of a Celtic vibe because it is somewhat based off of well, Scottish music or it's as best as he could take it, and the way he did that is by writing it in a Mixolydian, which makes it a bit less sort of traditional Western. For instance, so that piece there, so that piece there is written in E Mixolydian. So is it not quite major? Because if major scale basically has that seventh note, has the last note up a bit. Yeah, that second last note becomes a small difference, but to that is how it goes from major scale to Mixolydian. And Petrucci here is using that to make it sound more Celtic. Does it? Something like that. I'm just basically playing by ear here. So there are a whole bunch of different modes. Now, these are the modes that were originally used before they became major and minor scales. As it just so happens, the ones that are most common became things. I mean, so as you'll notice here, it actually says here, C Ionian becomes major and Alien becomes minor. At the same time, a lot of jazz musicians and a lot of other genres like that tend to still use modes quite often, but as major and minor did prevail. And if you look, it's actually this because you're just playing the white notes. It's the same intervals. It's the same whole, half, half, except moved across. So it goes whole, half, half, It's the same intervals in the same order, but but with the C major, or the C Ionian, you'd be starting off at this one. You'd be starting with whole, half, whole, half. So I'd say they're all basically the same sets of intervals. It's just different order, different starting point. So from here we can tell what note of a key we're in. So say we're now solidified down into a major key. Let's keep it in A major. A major because correct had said in A7 earlier. So within an A major key, we're only going to use the notes of A major, which is going to be A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. We figured that out by going tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So once we've got our notes in, we then know what notes we can put into the piece. So if I play, one last thing I need to talk about is chords. A basic chord would involve the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. So in the key of A major, we've got those notes, and A chords there would be A, missing note, C sharp, missing note, E. So the first one, the third one, and the fifth one. 1, 3, 5 is a basic chord. So A, C sharp, E. Can't find it. Ronnie. Oh God, Ronnie. Jeez, Ronnie's mad. So by following the tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone pattern and going 1, 3, and 5, we can pick out a chord, and in this case an A major chord. Now, this is where we can have fun. So if I play the A major chord, within reason, as long as I can play whatever I want on top of that with my right hand, as long as I'm playing one of the notes set in that tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone pattern on top of A, it will sound okay. It sounds very boring because I'm literally mostly playing up and down a scale and playing over one chord. But this is where what you can do is you can start doing more interesting things by bringing in further chords. Now, for the sake of keeping it simple, we are only going to talk about just straight major minor chords. Interesting enough, what makes a major chord and what makes a minor chord different is the third. Yeah, so it goes 1, 3, 5. So if you actually look here back from the patterns, so a major scale goes whole, whole, half, or tone, tone, semitone, whereas the minor scale goes whole, half, whole. Yeah. So, actually, most importantly, it's the first two, because that's the intervals from the first one. So if we took the A, went whole, whole. 2 whole notes up from that, I get to A, I get to C sharp. Whereas by going whole, then half, I wind up in half a note down, which is the C, just C natural. Natural being neither sharp nor flat. So the difference between a minor and a major chord, also actually, we'll continue on. So major one then goes half, whole. So it gives us A, C sharp, E, whereas the minor one from the half goes whole, whole. So both of them end up with the C and the A and the E both in place. So 1 and 5 is the same. It's just the third one is higher in a major one and lower in a major one by 1 semitone. It's just counting at this stage. So major. And it's so ingrained in a lot of cultures that if you were to play in a major or minor key, you can naturally tell the difference. So I'm gonna pick a random key, and in your head try and guess, or you can put in the chat, guess if it's major or minor. So versus this one, a complete separate key. Very, very similar material, except the difference is one was a major, one was minor, pretty much entirely because of that. The third note being higher or lower by half. So major chord, minor chord. So we can apply this whole 1, 3, 5 thing starting on any note of the scale. So being the notes of the A major scale, which we've worked out from the pattern. So if we were to go to E, which we've established as the fifth note, A, B, C, D, E, and then using that E, do the 1, 3, 5 thing on top of it. So E, we find ourselves doing E, G sharp, and B, which based off of the whole half thing or tone tone semitone thing is an E major scale. But for the sake of what we're talking about here, because the E, which is the starting note for it, is 5 above the A, we can call it a 5, and we call the A a 1. 5, 1. 5, 1. So from here we can actually start to build chord progressions together. And 5, 1 is one that really, really works nicely because 5 and 1 have a good connection, as we established earlier talking about tones. The fifth is 1.5 times the frequency of the first. So I'm going to play an A at 220, and you'll notice that the G directly above the A, the E directly above the A is at 165-ish. That's the wrong one, sorry. I was going to say my mind went weird. Is at 330-ish. the specifics as to why it's not quite exactly 330, not important right now. I say the 1 and the 5, so treating the A as the 1 because we're playing an A, and the E as a 5 because it's the 5th one above it, have a really important relationship. And a lot of music actually comes down to just playing those two chords. And if you look at chord progressions, if you look up 4-chord progression, which is where a lot of people like the Axis of Awesome did it for the 4-chord song, they say 1, 5, 6, 4. And the way that works is just, so you say you're starting with an A. So chord 1 would be A, because that's 1. The first note of A is 1, is A. The 5th note of A is E. The 6th note of A major is F sharp, which is actually an F sharp minor chord. That's because we're following the notes of the A major scale. And then the 4th one is D. So now the other thing I want to briefly talk about is that we don't always have to play it 1, 3, 5. As long as we're playing the right notes, they don't have to necessarily be in the 1, 3, 5 order. They could be 3, 5, 1. So it's the same chord as, it's the same as, because an E there has the same function as an E there, as an E there. Generally speaking, a chord sounds more grounded if the 1 of it, so if it's an E chord, if the E is in the bass. Generally speaking, it sounds more grounded if the root of the chord, as it's called, is lower. So if I play an E in the bass, and I can play an E chord using whatever order I want. All I'm doing is playing E, G sharp, and B, and I'm just playing lots of different versions of those notes. It's still always an E chord. So by following that, we can actually do it in a way that requires less movement. So as the bass is, which is that 1, 5, 6, 4. So A, E, F sharp, D, E, F sharp, D. And that there is immediately so many different songs. I'm going to briefly put on the Axis of Awesome, who did an entire thing where they basically showed the sheer amount of songs that use that exact progression. They're fucking awesome. Also, interesting thing to note here, see how the 6 down here in the Roman numerals is actually lowercase. Lowercase is indicating it's a minor chord, not a major chord. The uppercase the IV and the 1, 5, and the 4. The uppercase letters are indicating it's major. Interesting thing to note. So if you ever see chords written out like this, lowercase tends to be minor, uppercase means major.
Recognize this?
Yeah, that's Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
And the cast of Glee? Yeah, there's a few more songs with the same chords. Check it out. My life is brilliant. My love is pure.
It's to be fair, I remember this song back when I was in school, to be fair.
People kill and people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? Won't you turn the other cheek? Forever young, I wanna be forever young.
Oh, those effects. Oh god, those effects.
I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm your lipstick stains on the front of my left side brains. I knew I wouldn't forget you if I could. Then I would.
Beautiful.
I'd go wherever.
To be fair, most of the songs are even older than that. I actually only know the live versions. I've never seen this version.
Nobody wants to see us together, but it don't matter, no. 'Cause I got you.
Take me home to the place where I belong.
I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you until you love me. Papa, paparazzi. I can't live with or without you. Pictures of you, pictures of me, hung upon your wall for the world to see.
And she will be loved. Yeah, she will be loved.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me.
No woman, no cry.
Yeah, Mama, this surely is a dream.
I come from a land down under. Red, white, and blue. Funny things you do. America, America, this is you.
They say that
The parents set for taking pictures of minis.
Some love like I've never needed.
So what sort of stuff would you need?
Gonna make love to your baby.
Take on me
When I come around.
Take me on.
When I come around.
I'll be gone when I want to.
But yeah, I say, and that's just coming off of 4 chords, all based on that one major scale. And yeah, so from knowing, and as I say, you can tell how to make the chords together because there's 1, 3, and 5 based off of notes 1, then 5, then 6, then 4 of that scale, and you can figure out the scale by following the tone, tone, semitone pattern. Now, the best way I can describe it, if you're wanting to learn this and want to make it more natural into you, isn't to sit down and constantly think of tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone. It's not to necessarily just sit down and think of it every time. Hey Boris, welcome into some music theory. Actually, I'm about to end the music theory session reasonably soonish. You come back and see the word IKEA. Fucking Kallax units are the fucking bomb. I didn't believe it until Artie moved in here, and Jesus Christ, they're amazing. The only problem is this is what I've learned from you, Artie, is that the Kallax units are fantastic, but the inserts are far more expensive than they should be for it. Something you know fuck all about. Well, this has mostly been a kind of little bit about how notes are made, what makes notes sound more consonant or dissonant. You made them. Oh God, Artie, can you send a picture of the record storage with the Kallaxes? I want to share that because it's incredible. So I say, in future ones we will be going more into depth into stuff like rhythm and actually looking into. But we also talked about modes and talked about keys. So let's see what else we got. So the one other thing I want to briefly talk about is cadences. Gotcha. Got to me on a recent stream talking about safe screaming. Okay, it's not necessarily for me. We're more talking about. I'm trying to remember we're talking about different genres of music, and we're talking about we're talking about various things in metal, and the big thing that came across is how much everyone there hated the idea that if the screamed vocals are not skilled, that they're what's the whole thing? If you can't hear the words, then what's the point? Which, yeah, everyone was in complete agreement that it was utter bullshit. Any cube storage has got to then Artie, you also need to send the pictures of the complete pictures of the yarn storage because that is also incredible. So we're talking about that, and there's a video. Was it And where's one? Yeah, this trained teacher. It's this trainer from this Vice documentary. Because talking about how amazingly skillful it is to properly do actual scream vocals. Exactly. It's a lot of it comes down to the fact that people like what's familiar, and a lot of people end up listening more for the lyrics. And if you're having trouble distinguishing lyrics, it can become it's less appealing. I mean, this is where I have a lot of issues. I have a lot of issues that way of thinking. But the video that got linked was this one here, where it's Melissa Cross, who was a singing teacher who went around and basically saved a whole bunch of people's voices. Both pictures are in the job of excellent. I'll show that in a second. Exactly.
Hell yeah! I got into working with metal bands because
we end up talking a lot about how it's not only incredibly skillful to make the sound itself, but also to do it in a safe way, as not to just completely fuck up your throat.
Was recording not punk, it was called hardcore, and it was metal. He couldn't get them through a recording session without them coughing blood.
Let's fucking do this shit!
When the band first started and when I first started singing, I just didn't know what I was.
It's incredible, and I love the technique. I love the technique she's got. It's just a kind of universal thing I've always found is every vocal trainer, every singing coach has mad techniques, and it's great. I love singing teachers. I get flashbacks to because I grew up as a choir boy. I grew up singing in choirs from about 5, and so many different fucking weird techniques and things. I mean, even when I moved on to woodwind after when I was about 14 and 15 from piano, my piano teacher who also taught me saxophone used to do all sorts of weird shit to get my breathing right. I remember one time he put some books on top of me, had me making kind of producing notes just to kind of producing notes starting off really quiet and getting louder as he put more books on me just to make sure I breathe properly. The same buddy of mine released the debut single with his main band, It's Dumb Heavy. Please share that with... Actually, I'm gonna fucking call myself out here. If you go onto the Discord, I'm gonna go... Bam! That's not the right one for it. There we go. If you go onto the Discord, there should be... So this is the Job Hub Discord. I've got a section here called Listen to This, which can be anything from weird ambient experimental stuff, jazz, and whatever you have. It could be as metal as fuck as you want to go. I am down for it. I have incredibly broad taste in music. If you have anything you want to share, feel free to stick it in there and I'll have a listen to it. You just myself an excellent. It's the same as artists where you got to just say your name in the who are you bit, but it should be good. Oh, Flopper, hello, welcome in to Talking About Music. You want to see 2 channels? Yeah. So the top one there, who are you, that you'll be able to see, just say Boris the Hellblade and Artie will give you a role. Welcome in, Flopper. We're talking about music. We're talking about we were talking about notes. We were talking about harmonies. And now we're moving on to quite a few other things. We're going to I was briefly going to show the pictures of the storage for Snoach and for Blur. So this here was what we've done with the characters to fit all the records in. So we've got. Fortunately, it's not too much weight. There's not too much weight here in the middle, but yeah, this is the record collection and the record storage. Oh, Flop. Is Flopper someone you know, Duck? Who is Flopper? Who is a floppy boy? That's a bad way of putting it. I'm sorry for calling you floppy boy. Apologies. And the other one's the yarn storage. Organized mess, the best kind. Exactly. It's getting through. I'm kind of basically selling most of the stuff in here, so I love it's being processed and being what's the term for it? Appraised and cleaned. And then here's Artie beautifully showing off the yarn storage. Full disclosure, I plugged your stream on my brother's Discord. Oh, nice. So is Flopper one of your brother's bits? I am Duck's incredibly strange friend. Actually, where's the clip of me? Just this is me earlier. Got asked if I was summoning aliens. How will I contact the aliens? Mostly by going. Exactly, we're each other's strange friends. Sorry. welcome in. So we've been talking about music a lot, and talking about sounds, and talking about keys, and I briefly want to talk about cadences as one last thing. So one of the things you may remember from earlier was when I was talking about how you have harmonies when you've got dissonance resolving to consonance, so dissonance resolving to consonance. Anywho, yeah, slip past that. You want my cookie? Where is it? Archie, do you have any cookies in the flat? You see my cookie? Is your cookie back? Is this your cookie? Are these your cookies? Are these your cookies? I'm gonna make some soon. Fuck yes. Give me the cookies. But yeah, a large part of what makes that phrase seem like it's nice. This website requires cookies to continue. I'm not screaming this time. So a large part of what makes the end of this bit sounds nice is that there's a bit of an implication for it about cadence. And this is, remember when I was talking about expectations earlier, after the Bobby McFerrin clip, that after hearing this, songs to listen to this channel, listen to whenever you feel like. Fun fact, a buddy of mine's 19, Jesus Christ. Actually, I say that when I was 18, spent a lot of my time in the metal band I was in. Worm Shepherd Accursed. Let's give this a wee try. I'm only going to listen to a little bit of it in here, but then afterwards I might listen to the full thing. Good God, that's... Alex Cooler. Is Alex Cooler your buddy? Also separate fucking plug. On October 29th this month, there is going to be a Vocals to Worm is your buddy. Cool. October 29th this month, there is going to be the Job Quiz 3, which is going to be a bit of a catastrophe in every possibly good way, featuring countdown as well. So if you are free that evening, please come along. It should be great. And one of the rounds that's planned is going to be using I don't want to call it black metal font, but using these sort of metal fonts and seeing if you can tell what the words are actually saying. That's going to be one of the rounds in it, and as well as that, it's going to be a whole bunch of other rounds. We've had previous rounds in the past where it's been, can you tell what the topic of this weird gay erotica is, for instance. It should be really fucking weird, and it's free entry to anyone, and the prizes are awful in that most of them don't exist, but it's good. Should be a good laugh. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of just check the few analysis, and these are high. The cookies. High cookies. Damn. Those aren't cookies, those are brownies, I think you'll find. Yeah, those are definitely brownies by the sound of it. Fucking incredible range he's got. I think we're primarily talking about music, but we are easily distracted all over the place. Sam, I just want to have a brief... Whereabouts is the break? Because I'm wanting to get back on topic a little bit, but whereabouts is the breakdown? Okay. Yeah. Around 3:35. I say I'm very much into all sorts of genres. The only thing I tend not to like is stuff that I find boring. But that being said, I do quite also like a lot of stuff that is very still and very quiet, and very samey, for different reasons. I've got a very, very wide taste. Oh fuck. Jesus Christ. That is fucking incredible. And that is an incredible. See, this is, yeah, this is where there's a big issue when you're talking about this having no skill. That's an incredible range to be able to do that. And I guarantee you, anyone who says that takes no skill could not do that if they spent a fair amount of time trying. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm actually gonna listen to the whole thing later on because. Genuinely quite impressed with that, especially some of the. There's some really interesting things going in there with the rhythms of the blast beats and the drums. The ones looking into later personally. Yeah, well, you can't go nearly as low as that. Maybe not necessarily also yet, but maybe you might also maybe you might reach it later on. But also, everyone has their own natural range. Everyone has a range that they can work with, and it's all about optimizing the range as opposed to trying to work outside your limits. Always work within your limits, but know where they are. Know where the edges of your limits are, and push them, but only as much as you want to push, and only as much as is safe to push. But yeah, so one brief thing about cadences. So briefly back to cadences. So going back to this whole thing of how important chord 5 is in chord 1. I often need to cook something. Is it cookies? Fucking bet you it is cookies. Enjoy your hype cookies. Repeat for so long. Damn right. I can see why. So, chord 5 to chord 1 is what we call a perfect cadence. And it is the best way to anything. It's the best way to think. It's the perfect way. The terminology is starting to fall for me, so I think I've probably about covered enough, but this will be where we start off next time, actually. It's going to be talking about cadences, talking about what makes that satisfying compared to just going why one feels why this feels finished compared to, because I think for most people in Western culture feels like an ending, feels like a full stop. Also, Flopper, thank you so much for the follow. It is appreciated. Whereas doesn't feel finished. This will be where we start off for next time. I will be posting some resources into the Discord. I might even post a few challenges for some of you if you so wish. And as well, the one last thing I want to quickly plug, especially to you, Boris, while you're here, is that tomorrow night, starting off every Thursday from tomorrow night at I believe it's 8 o'clock until 9:30 BST, whatever that is. Yeah, but I'll post some challenges on Discord. But yeah, tomorrow night on Discord, I'll give you the role for it. There will be a session called Feedback Loops, which is going to be open for anyone making music, any musicians, anyone with an interest in making music can come along to it. And it's talking about what music you're writing, what music you want to write, what music you've heard, what music you find interesting. If you have any troubles with writing music, if you have any troubles with playing music, anything along the lines of making music. And it's somewhere free to talk about stuff. It's completely judgment free. It can be any skill level, whether you are an incredibly trained, skilled vocalist, whether you are someone who has spent years playing viola, whether you're someone who has a keyboard and who's bought a keyboard that day, has never played it but wants to try something. It is entirely exactly called you out there. Triangle aficionados, yeah. No matter your skill level, no matter your interest, no matter taste, it's somewhere to talk about making music, talk about any aspect of it, and try and help each other. And a lot of it could end up being, a lot of it could involve, you know, if you've got any new work you want opinions of, you can play it. So like I've got my new piece. I'm going to quickly shout that one out as well. Got my new piece recently called Day Jams. Not just plugging it there, I also needed the link. Got my new piece Day Jams, so I might end up asking for some feedback on this one and potentially where to improve things for future tracks in the album. Or it could be talking about ideas you have, could be talking about instruments you want to play, difficulties, anything. It's an entirely open session. Feedback loops every Thursday, 8 p.m. BST. I'm going to take a brief 2-minute break, but after we're going to be playing a game called Bullets Per Minute. Making more of my music and arrangements, yes, definitely come in. And it's not going to be on. It's not going to be on stream. It's going to be through Discord. All right, it's not going to be on stream because one thing I want to make clear is it's a kind of private space. It's a safe place to talk about things. You can talk about your own ideas. You can. I don't necessarily want to be like, hey, you're feeling self-conscious about how able you are to write music. Let's broadcast that in front of everyone. But yeah, so we're going to take a couple-minute break and then going to be playing some of a new game called Bullets Per Minute, which is a roguelike first-person shooter rhythm game where you've got to shoot things to the beat. This was actually a recommendation from Jolt yesterday. I'm going to briefly put on the trailer for it, and then I'm going to go to a little break while we set things up. So yeah. But yeah, so playing that in a couple minutes. But yeah, thank you for coming along. And as I said, I wasn't quite sure what's our direction to take it in, but I figured let's cover some basics. Let's cover some ground rules of music, and we can take it from there. And it's not, but these sessions aren't always going to be just purely talking basic music theory. Got some other ones planned up, including some ones more about music history, more about interesting people. Just interesting sessions. But yeah, thank you for coming along, and we'll be back in 1 minute. I know.